What are some of the most daring robberies people actually try? Let's get right to it with number 5, criminal fashion. A Manhattan bank robber became notorious when he carried out his heists dressed in the designer brand Burberry, earning himself the nickname Burberry Bandit. Cornell Neilly wore his designer clothing during at least 2 of his 14 believed heists that he conducted in April 2012. He stole over $8,500 while looking good. Neilly put the money he made from the heist towards more expensive clothes, buying more Burberry shirts and a pair of sneakers costing $400. The cash was to help support Neilly's shopping addiction. Neilly would enter a bank and hand a note to the teller that demanded cash in bills of $50 and $100. It was likely sprayed with cologne, since Neilly has an image to maintain. Neilly became nervous after entering a Bank of America in Midtown Manhattan on at least one occasion and left empty-handed. Later that day, he held up a Chase branch near Columbia University and left with $500. Neilly dressed casually for a crime wave he committed on April 11, 2012, where he stole $2,320 from a Midtown sovereign bank. It took him a month before he struck again, this time at an HSBC where he swiped $724. He took $400 from an Atlantic branch 6 days later. Neilly's stealing sprees across Manhattan made him notorious in the area. After months of not being caught, police finally arrested him and charged him with 14 bank heists. In 2014, Neilly received a 5 to 10-year prison sentence and was released in December 2019. However, it appeared that he hadn't learned his lesson. Between late June 2019 and July 10, 2019, he robbed or attempted to rob 9 more Manhattan banks. On July 3, 2019, he tried to hold up a bank on Park Avenue, but he left empty-handed shortly after handing the teller a note. Later that day, he went to a bank on 9th Avenue where he left with $1,000. There was no stopping the Burberry Bandit, except maybe a sale at Nordstrom's. Neilly went on another spree between January 4 and February 29, 2020. During that time, he attempted to rob 3 more banks, stealing another $3,000. Federal authorities arrested Neilly in January 2021, ending his fantastically dressed reign of terror. Shortly after, Neilly was handed a 13-count indictment for his robbery spree. In his hearing in Manhattan federal court, Neilly alleged that his actions resulted from mental illness and drug addiction. Judge Valerie Caproni acknowledged that his crimes weren't performed out of maliciousness, but were the actions of someone that needed help, but also more clothes. Judge Valerie could empathize. Neilly apologized to those he scared during his heists and sent a letter to Caproni before the sentencing, arguing that more prison time wouldn't help rehabilitate him. He argued that there were fewer good people than bad ones in jail and that he learned better ways to steal from those around him when he was in prison. The argument didn't fly, however, and Neilly pleaded guilty and received a 26-month prison sentence and 5 years of supervised release. The biggest punishment for him was probably the crappy prison outfits. Number 4, Inside Man. 2 security firm employees helped stage an elaborate robbery close to London's Heathrow airport where they stole millions of pounds from one of the company's cash and transit vans. Mohammad Siddique and Ranjeev Singh worked for Loomis when they executed the hijacking. Siddique drove the van and Singh accompanied him as a security guard. They were transporting $8.42 million on behalf of Credit Suisse when they stopped to go to the restroom. Later, they claimed that Singh was still in the bathroom when the van drove away. Siddique turned up hours later in a ditch with his hands tied behind his back and his feet tied together, claiming that all the money was gone. However, investigators were immediately suspicious of their story. In their opinion, Singh's behavior was far too casual for a man who was just hijacked and left in a ditch. We would have just accepted it. Oh, he's calm. Maybe he really likes being in ditches. That's probably why law enforcement stopped calling us for consults on tough cases. Well, looks like everyone at this mansion has an airtight alibi. The guy must have just tripped 47 times on a knife when the power went out. What a strange accident. Having spent 20 minutes minutes in the bathroom. Why is this called out as a long time? He went outside for a cigarette before letting coworkers in another van at the restaurant know that his truck was gone. The delay in reporting the event meant that the security firm's control center couldn't immobilize the vehicle to stop the raid. By the time they knew that the van had disappeared, someone had moved 28 bags of cash from one security van to a second vehicle parked on a quiet, secluded street. When Siddique first spoke to the police, he told them that an unknown man had contacted him at his home. In the typical fashion of strangers suddenly appearing at your house to coerce you into committing crimes, the man threatened to set Siddique's house on fire if he didn't participate in a plan to steal from one of Loomis's trucks. The officer was probably rolling his eyes during the story like, "Oh God, this again, another burning down your house threat." But investigators uncovered several pieces of evidence that showed what the pair were actually doing that day. Security camera footage caught Singh's cigarette break, where he waited at least 15 minutes before letting anyone know that the van was missing. According to Siddique's cell phone data, he was also in contact with his co-conspirators the day of the robbery and was directly involved in it. Further, Singh said he didn't have a phone on him that day, despite having one in his jacket pocket that he used to speak to Siddique while in the restroom. He threw away the phone's SIM card when he arrived at the police station, which authorities then discovered and used to identify other gang members. After a 2-week trial, the court convicted Singh and Siddique of conspiracy to steal. Their ringleader was a man named Rafat Hussain, who ran the operation and helped launder the money. His wife also participated in the fake heist. Both admitted to their involvement in the operation, which included money laundering, conspiracy to money launder, and conspiracy to commit burglary. Another member, Gary Karad, admitted to conspiracy to commit burglary in relation to the heist. The robbery was one of the biggest fake heists in the UK, and the money was never recovered. Number 3. Menos Por Pahor. Florida man Sandy Hawkins entered his local Wells Fargo and handed the teller a note demanding $1,100. When the teller asked Hawkins for his debit card, he responded that it was a robbery and he was armed. He watched the bank teller count out $2,000, which he said was too much, and specified in his note that he hoped to be caught. Once he had the correct amount, he left the Wells Fargo Boca Raton branch. The manager at one of his favorite sports bars identified Hawkins and helped lead Palm Beach County Sheriff deputies to his home. He confessed to the crime upon their arrival. Hawkins had lost everything. His mother and siblings had passed away, but the most devastating blow came when his wife died. At the time of the robbery, he only had $38 left, and his car had been recently repossessed. Hawkins was represented in court by public defender Carrie Howitt, who asked for leniency as Hawkins had no criminal history and no living relatives. Those that knew him claimed that he was likely driven to the edge by grief, having found himself in a situation where he had barely enough money to live off and had lost everyone in his support system. Rather than jail time, Howitt fought for him to stay in a sober living facility in Delray Beach, which would be covered by grant money from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. The foundation helps reduce jail populations in Palm Beach County. Those eligible for this type of benefit are people in need of mental health care, homeless people, and people living in poverty. Howitt's goal was to put Hawkins in a position where he could get back on his feet. She also hoped to set him up with a grief counselor. Circuit Judge Jeffrey Gillen agreed to release him to the facility. A condition of the release was that he would be put on a monitor. Hopefully, Hawkins is doing a little better. Number 2. The phone plan. Inmate Arthur Cofield Jr., who was locked up in a Georgia maximum security prison, allegedly stole $11 million from a billionaire movie mogul while behind bars. Despite being locked inside the Georgia Department of Corrections Special Management Unit, Arthur Lee Cofield Jr. took millions of dollars from at least one billionaire's account by pretending to be them while Arthur was on the phone with their bank. Cofield was serving a 14-year sentence for armed robbery when he allegedly impersonated movie mogul Sidney Kimmel. Sidney Kimmel is the CEO and chairman of the Los Angeles-based entertainment company Sidney Kimmel Entertainment. The company is responsible for misleadingly titled blockbusters like Crazy Rich Asians. Spoiler, they were not actually crazy. Everyone survives. Moneyball, no giant balls of money made out of money running over people. And Hell or High Water, the water wasn't high, and there were many other choices. Sidney Kimmel Entertainment was financially backed over 40 feature films. Kimmel is worth worth around $1.5 billion and began his career when he founded Jones New York, an apparel company that he sold for $2.2 billion. In recent years, Kimmel's focused both on filmmaking and his philanthropic endeavors. The Johns Hopkins University Cancer Center was named after him, as well as the medical school at Philadelphia's Thomas Jefferson University. Cofield spoke to customer service representatives at Charles Schwab, where he impersonated Kimmel. He arranged $11 million to buy 6,106 American Eagle 1-ounce gold coins from a company in Idaho. From there, Cofield allegedly used some coins to buy a $4.4 million house and had a private plane transport the rest to Atlanta. Investigators were unsure as to why Cofield targeted Kimmel, although it seemed that there were other billionaires that interested Cofield as well. Authorities believe Cofield is responsible for other thefts, including potentially accessing an account belonging to Nicole Wertheim, who was married to Florida billionaire Herbert Wertheim. Allegedly, he turned $2.25 million into gold coins as he did with Kimmel's money. Cofield maintained his presence in the outside world using contraband cell phones. Guards found him with cell phones at least 12 times while serving at 5 different prisons. You can't get the cell phones away from the kids these days, am I right? On one occasion, officers conducting a shakedown found a cell phone concealed on Cofield's body. He had cell phone junk, if you will. Authorities believe Cofield was paying off correctional officers to turn a blind eye to his possession and usage of the banned cell phones, but couldn't prove it. However, it was clear that someone was helping him get the phones. The Georgia Department of Corrections often deals with prisoners obtaining cell phones. Inmates use creative methods to get phones, including using drones to drop them into the yard. Cell phones have many purposes for inmates, ranging from communicating with family and loved ones to being used to maintaining a connection to the outside world. For Cofield, his cell phone was his lifeline to carrying out his crimes from inside his cell. In the fiscal year of 2022, over 5,600 cell phones were confiscated from inmates. Cofield gained access to Kimmel's Charles Schwab account when he called the bank pretending to be the billionaire. He used the app Text Now, which made it appear that he was calling from a Los Angeles number rather than a Georgia one. Cofield opened a new checking account in Kimmel's name. When the representative asked him for a utility bill and form of ID, Cofield sent over a photo of Kimmel's driver's license and a copy of his water bill. How he got access to that information, we don't know. But how can you not be impressed? Kimmel's license. Once the account was opened, Cofield allegedly contacted Money Metals Exchange, a company in Idaho that deals with precious metals. He then organized the purchase of the gold coins. To wire money to Money Metals Exchange, Cofield gave Schwab a reimbursement request and a forged letter of authorization from Kimmel. He organized a private plane to bring the coins to Atlanta and arranged a security detail for the transaction. At least 2 others were involved in the scheme, Eldridge Bennett and his daughter, Aliyah Bennett. Authorities allege that Eldridge met the plane when it touched down at Atlanta's Signature Airport, where he collected the coins. Aliyah was likely responsible for finding the house Cofield purchased. At the time, the house, situated on Randall Mill, wasn't even for sale due to being under construction. Aliyah posed as Cofield's wife and convinced the owner to sell her the home for $4.4 million to Cofield under the name Archie Lee. They paid the majority of the roughly $500,000 down payment in cash. During closing, Eldridge took the money in duffel bags to a branch of Cadence Bank located in Alpharetta. Everyone that dealt with Archie seemed to have a strange feeling about him. He'd only meet people on the phone and go weeks without communicating, then reappear and give an excuse for not being available, like claiming he was out of the country. Cofield told the original Randall Mill homeowner that he was a talent scout for rap artists trying to make it in the music industry. Supposedly, his role required him to have large amounts of cash on hand. He claimed that he made his money by investing in Bitcoin. Sidney Kimmel didn't suffer financially from the ordeal. Thank heavens. We don't know what we would do if Kimmel suffered any sort of financial loss, so he was ultimately not the victim. Kimmel actually slept peacefully, unaware that he had some chump change stolen, like the precious angel he is. Charles Schwab reimbursed Kimmel for the total amount stolen, as is their policy in cases of unauthorized activity. Once the suspected fraudulent activity was on their radar, they launched an official investigation and ensured their client's account was protected. They also notified the authorities. Federal agents uncovered Cofield's criminal activities in 2020 and charged him with conspiracy to commit bank fraud and money laundering. They believed he likely orchestrated many similar thefts from billionaires' accounts, but the theory hadn't been proven as as of October 2022. The theft was likely not the only crime Cofield committed behind bars. As of October 2022, he was facing charges of attempted murder following accusations that he ordered the murder of one of his romantic rivals. Eldridge and Elia Bennett also faced charges for their roles in the scheme. The house became subject to forfeiture and sale by the government. Number 1. Facebook Confessions. A London-based gang of 8 men stole expensive luxury cars from some of the wealthiest residents in the city. They stole Range Rovers, Porsches, BMWs, and a Mercedes worth $120,000. In addition, they took phones, laptops, and jewelry in at least 15 different robberies. The group couldn't keep quiet about their newfound wealth and took to social media to brag about it. How else are people going to know that you've been stealing expensive cars unless you're telling everyone online, you know? One member took a picture of himself holding a stack of cash between 2 slices of bread, showing off a cash sandwich. The joke is on him though. You can only get coins back if you eat them. Unfortunately, we lost all of our rent money learning that little lesson. Another member posed with a huge pile of 20 and 50 pound notes worth $24 and $60 each. 2 of the gang members also took pictures with the stolen Mercedes. Police obtained video footage from their phones where they raced the cars they stole and messages they sent one another to arrange the burglaries, leading directly to their arrest. Between April and September 2012, the group broke into homes in Kensington, Notting Hill, and Kensale Green, where they stole at least 9 cars, jewelry, and electronic goods. They targeted houses with valuable cars and often broke into the homes just to get the keys. Caitlin Williamson, the ringleader, had pictures on his phone where he held 3 keys from stolen vehicles. In another photo, he was sitting on a Porsche 911 that was reported stolen by its owner. Video footage of him running from officers and accidentally dropping the key to a stolen Land Rover was used as evidence in court. Out of everything they stole, the main trophy was the $120,000 white Mercedes. Police returned the vehicle to its owner, but the gang kept the key. They tried to steal it again, but discovered it had been reprogrammed. The owner caught them on his home surveillance camera and chased the thieves away. On another occasion, the gang had to flee the scene after attempting to steal a Maserati and a laptop after the owner confronted them midway through the robbery. The group all pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit a dwelling house burglary in court, with the exception of Rory Mason, who claimed to have nothing to do with the robberies. However, a jury found the whole group guilty. Their prison sentences ranged from almost 5 years to 3 years and 10 months. Williamson's sentence was 4 years and 8 months after being the brains behind most of the operation. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather do if you had to pick one. Try and rob a bank and get away with it, or serve 1 month in jail.